Hey everybody, welcome to Sana Q&A Mondays. I'm Meredith Miller, integration coach and author. It's during these sessions every Monday that I answer your questions for free and post the videos as content later. So I've got a bunch of questions to answer for you guys today. I just want to start with this announcement. Please, from now on, in order to submit questions for our Monday Sana Q&As, you're going to need to click on the link below, which I've put here in the about section, and you'll need to click on that link to take you to my webpage where you'll be able to see where people are posting questions in the comments. You'll need to be logged into my website in order to access that page. So that way only logged in users are able to do that. If you don't have a login yet, just go to my homepage, which is innerintegration.com. Scroll down to the bottom, you'll see the email opt-in. You'll go ahead and fill in your name and your email. You'll get registered with your own personal login information. You'll also get access to that free 3-part training that I have, Fundamentals of Sana. And remember that Sana stands for self-healing after narcissistic abuse. It also means heal, healthy, and sane in Spanish. So today is Monday, September 26th, and I'm going to go ahead and start with these questions. This person wrote, I've been married to an emotional manipulator for over 20 years. I have 3 kids, twins who will be 18 soon, and a 13-year-old. I don't see a future with this man because he is very unemotional, narcissistic, and tries to control me. However, he is a high-profile lawyer that makes leaving very complicated. I also lost my professional job a few years ago due to a chronic condition, and I can't support myself financially. I woke up to the narcissistic abuse a couple of years ago and can now see straight through the manipulation. I don't react to it anymore. I think my husband has realized he no longer has control over me and is being particularly nice. This is a manipulation in itself. Do you have any suggestions? So yeah, starting with that very last part, right now he's being nice. That is a manipulation. It's the setup for the manipulation. It's to get you to soften and lean into him again. So be very cautious when you're dealing with a manipulative person and suddenly they're being nice and sweet to you. You should sort of have this built-in warning signal that lets you know, warning, warning, manipulation in effect, so that your heart doesn't accidentally open to that again. That's the danger that you run there, because they're only nice when they're doing it for a goal. They're setting you up for something. They're going to want something from you. So be very cautious when they're being nice. I would approach that equally with a grain of salt, just as you would anything they say, anything whatsoever so that they say or do. It's always because they have an ulterior motive. What is it that they want? Why are they being nice? In your case, maybe it's because, you said you're seeing through the manipulation and you don't react to it anymore. So he's not getting that usual narcissistic supply that he used to get from you when he could trigger you unconsciously into those manipulations. Now you see it. Now you get it. Now you're changing your behavior. It sounds like it. I don't think you use the word boundary, but it sounds like you're setting new boundaries, right? Because if you're not enabling the abuse, the emotional manipulation, now you have new boundaries, and he's recognizing those boundaries, and toxic people don't like your boundaries. So, if he realized that being rude and mean wasn't getting him past your boundaries, now he's resorting to the sweet, nice, kind part of him. But again, that's just a manipulation tool. So it's good that you recognize what that is. It's very common. And good job waking up, to what was going on. I'm really sorry to hear, how complicated your situation is. I imagine you feel a lot of fear around the fact that he is a lawyer, and trying to leave him after 2 decades of a marriage. It sounds like your oldest kids are about to be, adults. They're about to be 18, which is awesome. They're going to be able to make their own decisions. The 13-year-old, still there's going to be issues with custody and whatnot. If I were you, I would start researching the best family court attorneys. I would look for someone who is ruthless, like compassionate for you, right? Who the person's representing, and empathic for what you're going through, but ruthless in court. Because if your husband is this high-profile lawyer in town, one, he's in the law field. Like I said, even though if he isn't in the family law, he could know people and whatnot. And that's very intimidating. So if I were you, I would counter with the best that you can find. Like, I would do research, interview, this person. What would you do in this situation? I would flat out say, what would you do in this situation where, the manipulative, abusive partner is a high profile attorney? And see what they say, and get some advice in that way. And keep in mind, as you move through this process, you want to know, what is it that your husband most wants? Is it his public profile, of being this exemplary father and husband figure and high profile lawyer? Like, what is the most important thing to him? Is it the image he has around town? When you know what that is, then you have a tool for counter manipulation, because it's going to come to that most likely with the court situation and all that. Often narcs make the court situation very difficult, from what I've heard from a lot of people who are doing the family court battles, the divorce battles. It is complicated, extra more so when you have children. So, when you get to that point where you feel like you're going to give up, get really clear about what is your why. Like, why are you still going? Why haven't you given up? Is it your kids? Is it something else? Is it something of that nature? What is your why? Because you want to keep coming back to that to pull yourself through, because I can guarantee there's going to be really hard moments. I'm not going to lie to you and tell you that's going to be easy. But you also got to think about yourself, and just staying and compromising yourself for the fear of the fact that he's an attorney and whatnot, and has this reputation in town. You don't want to keep yourself trapped there in that mental prison for the rest of your life, or until your youngest kid is 18, which is like 5 more years. That's a long time. It's a long time to have this awareness and be stuck there. It's a whole different thing when you don't know, when you're living in denial and you don't know, and you're just going through the motions. It's hard enough. But once you've realized what's going on, now it's like you kind of have to start taking actions, and you are. And that's awesome. The actions you're starting to take is you're changing you. You're changing how you respond to the abuse, and you're changing your ability to notice it. Like I describe it, like you're watching TV and the emergency broadcast system comes on, that little flash across the bottom of your screen. It's like beep, 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 gas, lighting, alert. Beep, 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 minimization, alert, and it's always telling you in real time the different manipulation tactics that they're using. That way you can see it in a very sterile, clinical way, and you're creating a distance between you and that manipulation, so you don't get automatically swept into it, swept into the self-defense, put on the self-defense, and all of that, because that's just an enormous waste of energy, and they know that. That's why they keep you there in that exhausted state. So the less energy you invest in that, the better, because the more energy you have to take care of you and to move forward. And there could be times where the only progress you can make in the situation, there could be these moments, right, these periods of time where the only progress you can make is taking care of yourself, like radical self-care, especially when that is the only thing you can do, when you have no control of anything else happening around you, and it seems like everything is chaotic, and the kids are chaotic, and everything is chaotic. Focus on taking care of you. Like, what is one thing you can do right now to take better care of yourself? Because the stronger you feel about yourself, the safer you feel inside yourself, the more confident you feel in who you are, the better, because you're going to be able to move through that process a lot easier. You're not going to be easy game to his tactics that are going to try to cause you fear and doubt and anxiety. You want to stay away from stuff that makes you feel like that. Just tune it right out and watch your self-talk, right? How you're talking to yourself in your inner dialogue. Maybe your voice sounds like him sometimes. You've been with him for 20 years. Maybe your voice sounds like him berating you and putting you down, or telling you you're not good enough, or you can't do it, or blah, blah, blah. Maybe your voice sounds like your mom or your dad, or someone you met early in your life who was trying to put you down and keep you, under their control. So be very cautious of what is going through your mind, and eradicate that negative self-talk. As soon as you hear it, quit that shit. Grab a hold of that and be like, no, that's not me. I don't believe in that. Cancel, 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 or delete, delete, delete. And then reframe that with something else. If it's like, I just can't do this. I can't get through another day of this. Tell yourself, you know what? I am so strong. I am so strong and brave that I made it this long. I have been doing it. I can do it. I know from my experience I can do this. I can get through this. I can keep working towards my goals to change my life, to have a better life for myself, so I can create a better life for my children and greater opportunities for all of us moving forward. So also really take control of that self-talk. That's a big part of the self-care. Because if you're treating yourself like shit, everybody else is treating you like shit, you're going to feel like shit, and it's going to be really hard to get anything done. So if you're living in a toxic environment, you got to understand, this can only work for short term. You can manage it. You can manage it in the short term, but it's only manageable. You're not really going to be able to move up and forward in your life until you get out of that situation. At the same time, you still need to cultivate enough energy and momentum so you can get up and out of that situation. And just keep telling yourself, like, this too will pass. This too will pass. If I can get through this, I can get through anything. And create your power phrase like that, so that you're always hearing this inside your mind. That's like your mantra. Like, every time it gets hard, you go to that thing, whatever that phrase is, and you just keep saying that to yourself until you believe it, right? So, go ahead and find legal advice as well, because you're definitely going to want that. Given that he's a high profile lawyer, you're going to need to challenge him with everything you've got. And you could probably guarantee that, being a narcissistic abuser, he's made some other enemies in town in his field of law. If you can sniff out who those people are, and maybe you can even extract this information from him, essentially you're using his techniques against him, and find out, who is it that has it out for him? Probably because he treated them like crap, or he screwed them over. Somebody with a vendetta against him might be your ally. Maybe not. It could be another toxic narcissist. You need to be cautious, right? But if you can find someone else in that field who has experience, knowledge, is ruthless, and willing to fight for their client and their client's children and for the better future of them, and if you can find somebody who is not afraid to stand up to him, and maybe is even looking forward to the opportunity to stand up to him, and could even give you help, as a financially dependent, spouse, and with the children and all that, you don't know, right? You don't know what possibilities are out there. And sometimes we think like there's no other possibilities. Like, we can't imagine something better just because we haven't been exposed to that paradigm. So you create that paradigm. You create your reality with your perspective. So keep working on that. Work on your inner state. Work on how you feel. Work on your perspective until you are so confident and sure that you are going to find the right people that are going to come across your path to lead you forward and to lead your children forward in life as well. I'm sending you a big hug. I know that must be really scary. I'm 7 months post-narc and ended trying to take my life over the most gruesome final discard. My whole life has been destroyed by my ex same-sex partner. In terms of getting mental health support and the trauma that still continues for me, do you have any information as to whether psychotherapy is best or CBT? I've tried counseling but found this unhelpful. Thanks. So, I don't know with exact details the difference between psychotherapy, counseling, CBT, which I think stands for cognitive behavioral therapy, where they get you to rationalize or think out and articulate the feelings that you're having. I think that's what that means, but I'm not entirely certain. I don't know what's going to work best for you. If any of those are your exact fit, that's something you're going to need to feel out. Personally, what I find is the most important thing when I'm choosing a professional, whether it's a healer, a therapist, a counselor, a coach, whomever I'm hiring in my life to help me get to the next level, to help me resolve things, could be an acupuncturist and all of this. Like, first, I get online and I do research on that person. If I don't get a one-on-one word to mouth recommendation from someone who's just raving about that person, if I don't know, and I'm just looking for an acupuncturist online, and I go to Yelp or I go to one of these online sites and I'm looking for someone who has good reviews, I'm looking for testimonials, I'm looking for people's results, maybe you get a feeling that way. Maybe you're intuitive and you can like see someone's website and their photo and you can feel if you resonate with them or not. Maybe that person even has some videos or a blog and you read the blog or you see their videos and you know immediately, do you resonate or just not? You know, maybe you have like immediate aversion to someone, right? And you got to trust that. You got to listen to your feeling. Doesn't mean it's a bad person. It means it's not the right fit, right? So when you're looking for a professional anything, make sure it's the right fit. I mean, when you're looking for a doctor, don't just accept like the person that your healthcare just happens to hand you, or like it just happens to be random that you just happen to get this person and you're not really connecting with them. Don't settle for that. Look for a doctor, you know, look for a doctor that you resonate with, whose message, whose life is aligned with yours, who has similar values as you, because otherwise, you know, this person is like helping guide you in your health, you know, just like a therapist is helping to guide you in your mental health. If that person doesn't have some similar values as you, if you're not resonating and seeing life kind of on the same page, that may not be the most helpful connection for you, you know. And any modality, any form of medicine, therapy, coaching, holistic healing, you name it, depends on the person who's doing it. You know, it depends a lot on who's delivering the message, on who's facilitating, you know, the practice, the moment, who's guiding the experience, because you can only move as far as that person has moved through, you know. And it's important to find someone who gets you, like especially a therapist. When you're talking about talk therapy, like just like you wouldn't want to have a conversation with someone, like say you went on a new date and like you're trying to have a conversation with this person and they just don't get you at all. Like you're super liberal and progressive and spiritual and non-parochial, and they're super religious, super conservative, you know, super this and that, and like you're just like totally different. Again, doesn't mean the other person's a bad person, but you just don't see eye to eye. So it's going to be really hard to allow that person to guide you to the next phase, because they're guiding you according to their reality paradigm and you're living in a whole different reality paradigm. You know, you mentioned that you're gay, and maybe your professional needs to be gay because they totally get your experience, you know, which a hetero cannot totally get because they don't know what it's like to always be looked upon differently, or to have very different dynamics in your relationship, you know, even how like society sees you and whatnot, or how you see yourself through the lens of society. Like, look for people who are like you in some way. Look for people who overcame what you're working on overcoming. Like when you're trying to do something in life, go find a mentor, go find a professional, go find a new best friend, go find someone who did it well, right? Because then you know they can give you advice to get out of there. They know, you know, they can help guide you to where you're trying to go. You know, it's like you don't want to ask somebody who doesn't know, who's never been there, who's never dealt with those issues. You don't want to hire a therapist who doesn't have really a clue what PTSD is, or CPTSD, or how you get PTSD from a relationship, or what is an emotionally abusive relationship, and what are the dynamics of dealing with an emotionally manipulative person. If your therapist doesn't get that stuff, you're not going to really be able to move forward out of those patterns. They might be able to help you with some other little things in your life, but if you want to get to the core of your problem, you've got to find somebody who gets it, who gets you. So that's really important. And, you know, again, you don't have to feel like there's something wrong with you if you don't totally resonate, or it's not working for you. It's not, either not the right therapy or it's not the right practitioner. You know, so keep looking until you find that right fit. And, you know, I would call it out to the universe too, just like you want to call out your mate in life, right? Just like you want to call out your dreams and what you want to manifest. When you want to manifest the right professional, I would sit down in meditation and be like, okay, I'm looking for either a counselor, a psychotherapist, a coach, an acupuncturist, whomever, who really gets this and that and the other, and who has experience with this and that and the other. And when I meet this person, there's this instant, we get each other kind of thing. You know, describe it however it is that you're looking for it, but I would manifest it in that way, and I would not settle for therapy or a person, a professional who's not really helping you. Because again, it doesn't necessarily mean they're a bad person, doesn't necessarily mean they're not good at what they do. They might be, but it just might not be the fit for you. And you got to keep looking until you find that fit. So I'm sending you a big hug too, because I imagine that must be really difficult. And, you said you got to the point of, trying to take your life over it. And I'm so sorry, that you got to that point. And you're not alone. There are so many other victims of abuse who got to that point too. Maybe some of them actually took their lives, and maybe we never knew, and maybe their families never even really knew why they did that. Like, it just didn't make sense. Why it seemed like they were in a good relationship, or it seemed like they had a good job or whatever, but nobody really saw behind the scenes. So don't isolate yourself. Make sure that you're reaching out to your support network who is loving and uplifting and positive. Make sure you surround yourself with people like that. And if you don't have people like that in your life, you need to find people like that. You need to connect with people like that. Even if you start in a support group, it could be a group that you find in person, maybe a 12-step group or some other spiritual or other support group that you find in your local area. And again, keep looking until you find the right vibe, where you feel good there, where you feel a good connection with the people there. Maybe you want to look online, for some other support groups. Maybe you want to start something of your own. There is actually very little out there about narcissistic abuse and same-sex partners. Every now and then I hear from some people who tell me this is their story, but it is the minority of the people I hear from. I can only imagine there are a ton of people out there who just don't know that they're being abused, and they're in a same-sex partnership, or they're dating, and they just keep meeting the same people over and over again, and they just don't get it. So, if you feel called to start something like that, to start a blog or a video channel on YouTube, or a local or online support group for people like you, because remember, when you know that you have something in common with someone, they're like you have things in common, it forms this like instant trust, like this instant bond with other people, and maybe there's nothing out there for someone just like you, and I'm speaking to all of you right now. If you're listening to this, maybe you feel the calling, you haven't really connected with the support group. Maybe you feel the calling to start that yourself, to start a local group, to start an online group, to start something with people like you. Maybe you're a single mom, maybe you're a single dad with kids, maybe you're in same-sex partnership, whatever your thing is that makes you unique. But there's this whole area which is not being covered. Like there's so many people who are like you in that way. You have that thing in common, whatever that is. And if you can just connect everyone together, there could be massive sharing and understanding and mutual upliftment. You guys can take each other to the next level. So, sometimes that's just the most powerful thing you can do. When it's like, when you don't find that teacher, sometimes life is just telling you, like, you got to do it. You got to summon up the courage inside yourself and start this process yourself. Start creating what it is that you want and need in your life. So I'm sending you a big hug too. Someone asked here, how does one deal with the annoyance of living in a small town with your ex-emotional manipulator? There are upcoming events to which I want to go, and at the same time, I don't wish to bump into him. I am out of the fog, and the full moon eclipse shifted a lot for me. I'm concerned about the risk of re-triggering the trauma bond and the ramifications of character assassination. When do you know you're out of the woods? So that's a great question. When do you know you're out of the woods of that trauma bond, where you could run into the abuser and not feel immediately triggered, back into that trauma bond? And I think the reality is that you're always going to experience some level of anxiety around it. Like your body might shake a bit and you might feel the anxiety, because that anxiety is triggering all the past anxiety, all of the memories, when you're face to face with that person, even more so. That could happen. For me, my barometer, when do I know I'm really out of the woods, is when I'm no longer harboring hatred or love for that person. Because if you have hatred or love, you're still stuck in that trauma bond. You want to get to the point of what they would call indifference, where you don't really care, and at the same time you wish them well on their way. Like, not like you have a conversation necessarily where you're like, oh, I wish you all the best and blah blah blah. You don't really want to have any contact with that person. If you run into them at events in your town, or you just happen to live in a small town, or you happen to live in New York friggin' city, and of all the people in that city, you happen to be on the same subway car ride, or you happen to come face to face at some event, or just walking down the street. Like, trust that that's an opportunity from the universe to learn something, because what else can you do, right? And to learn something. So first thing, step 0, boundaries, right? Immediately suit up. If you haven't already, make sure those boundaries are on really well. Focus on your breath. Focus on yourself, your response to reality and whatever is showing up, this person or some other person that was connected to them or whatever. And remember, you don't owe them anything. You don't owe them a conversation. You don't owe them eye contact. You owe them absolutely nothing. How do you really know you're out of the woods is when you see that person over there, or you know that they're around or whatever, or someone tells you so-and-so's here, and you're like, all right, but you don't really care. You're just like, okay, you feel a bit of anxiety, but you just don't really care. And you're just like, well, wish all the best to them. Good luck. And stay away, right? Just not having any contact with them. But you're not like, oh man, I hate their guts. They did this and they did that and they deserve this and that, because you're stuck in it. You have created a bond. That hatred is a bond between you and the object of your hatred. It keeps you a slave. It's like, imagine every time you feel hatred to that person, you're working on that and you're trying to get rid of that. And remember, why do you feel that way? It's probably because someone did something wrong. Someone hurt you, and that hatred built up because you weren't able to stand up for yourself in the moment, or you didn't realize what was happening in the moment, or you were just so powerless and beaten down and helpless in the moment that you didn't ask for help, that you didn't even question your reality and try to get out of it, right? Part of that is against the self. There's always a big element of self-forgiveness when you're recovering from abuse, because of how much you enabled and put up with, and in retrospect, look back and saw. So recognize, if that hatred is against you and against yourself. And that's where you got to get to that point of self-forgiveness and keep doing that work on self-forgiveness and realizing you did the best you could do at the time. And now you know more, and now you know better. So now you're going to do better, but if you see this person and your hatred is directed towards them, just imagine in your mind that hatred is like a chain, like a ball and chain that you are dragging around that is keeping you attached to that person, and when you look at it symbolically in that way, suddenly you're like, ugh, get that chain off of me, I don't want to be carrying that around. And so in your mind, every time you see that person, you imagine like the ball and chain, temptation to hate them. You're like, yeah, not even worth investing my energy in hating you, because I would rather be investing my energy in moving forward with life and focusing on my passion and purpose and what I'm doing here and why was I born, versus sitting here and hating you because you're just, a pathetic jerk who has to treat people like crap. You're just not even worth hating. Like, that person is going to feel the effects of their own karma, even if you're not seeing it right now. Just let the universe work that out. Let God work that out, however you see that. And know that the only power and control that you have in the situation is the response that you give that person. So, if you sense that hatred coming on, you're not out of the woods. If you sense the love coming on, if you see that person, you're like, oh, the good times, and if only we could go back to when things were good, and he or she can really be a good person at times, that's dangerous too, because again, you're back in the trauma bond. Either extreme, hatred or love, is going to keep you attached to that person. So you're out of the woods when you just don't care anymore. You just don't care. You're like, oh man, so glad that's over. So glad that person's out of your life. And even the gratitude of that, right? Like the indifference toward that person and the gratitude, like celebrate the gratitude to yourself that you got it and you did it. Like you figured it out, you got away, right? And you got away from that whole dynamic, and now you're working on healing yourself. That's amazing. That's worth celebrating. That's worth focusing on, much more than focusing on this person and are they ever going to get their karma and stuff. That has nothing to do with you. Nothing. You have no control over that. All you can control is yourself and your reaction. So if you realize that it is just way too soon, this person didn't say how long it was that they haven't been together. If it's only been a few months, it might be way too soon to be around that person. You might need to avoid events that you're going to see that person at. Like if you know he or she is going to be there, don't go. If you go with your people and be sure that they're debriefed and they know, not to allow this person around you. They will create something to keep that person away, and to keep you away from, focusing on that. But if you just can't focus and you can't have a good time, you can't enjoy yourself and you feel like you're becoming off center, then you probably need to remove yourself from this situation. So I would listen to your feeling, your intuition 100%. Just keep asking yourself, how do I feel right now? How do I feel right now? And if the answer is not good, then you need to get out and go take care of yourself. And sometimes the only thing you can do is the self-care. So do it awesome. Do it radical self-care. Just like fully take care of yourself. Invest in yourself. Give yourself that bubble bath or salt bath, or go get a massage or get a pedicure, or go take a walk on the beach, or go play with the puppies at the park, or the puppies in the window of the pet shop. I mean, whatever feels awesome to you, like maybe you like to run and that feels good to you. That's awesome. Maybe you like to cook healthy foods. Maybe you like to splurge on that one food every now and then. Okay, so go enjoy that food, but take care of yourself. Like when you notice that you're reaching that line, that breaking line, right? Got to start taking care of yourself more. As soon as you start to feel depleted, as soon as you start to feel exhausted and overwhelmed and stressed out, you got to set a boundary, remove yourself from that situation, and go take care of you. I'm sending you a big hug. Someone asks, is there anything to be gained in exposing a narcissist? I know the answer is already no. It's just that injustice I can't help. So I think what the person is saying is that the injustice about it is bothering them the most. And it sounds like that's why they might want to expose the narcissist. So, it's a risk. Why would you do it? What would there be to be gained from exposing them? If you feel like you just absolutely need to speak your truth. You just need to say it. You need to say how you feel, how you have felt, how you feel about this person, express what was going on, call them out for their bullshit. If you feel like you need to do that to open up your throat chakra, to get back in connection with your willpower, to get back in connection with your truth, if you feel like your voice is always cracking and you're always getting throat issues, and when it comes to speaking, something happens in your voice and it gets all mousy and weak, and or you can't speak it out, or maybe you have dreams where you want to scream and all that comes out is like nothing comes out. This is all a sign that you need to speak your truth more. You need to use your voice. So if you feel like you need to speak your voice and you just need to say it, and you're not waiting for their response, you're not dependent on that, you're not expecting anything, you're not even hoping for any change or atonement, reconciliation, forgiveness, none of that. It's simply for the value of speaking your truth so that you open this up. If that's all it is for you, then go for it. If that's what you need to do, then go for it. Maybe you need to do that to free your voice, to free your willpower, to free your truth. If you don't feel like that and you just feel like you just want to expose this person for what they did because what they did was wrong and it was really unfair and they shouldn't have done that, and you feel awful for what happened and you want other people to know, if that's the motivation, I probably would not do it, because it's just dangerous. If you're talking about just confronting this person, the manipulator themselves, it could be that person retreats in the moment and then goes and plots something else, and then tries to hurt you more, tries to manipulate you more. If you do confront a narcissist one-on-one, I would just cut everything off at that point. Like, make sure there's no more contact. You're not receiving any messages. They have no more contact to you. They can't get into wherever you are and all of that, because that's what's going to create what they call a narcissistic injury. And that's when someone calls out a narcissist takes away the narcissistic supply, they will go into a rage. Now, depending how covert the narcissist is, they will probably retreat for a period of time. The more covert they are, the more sociopathic they are. They will just plot, and you don't know how long it could be for them to come back. And hopefully they just find a new target, because you're not interesting anymore if you're not responding to them. And if once you know who they are, they stop hoovering you. They only hoover in an attempt to hurt you, to get retribution, but they're not hoovering to get back with you, because they know They know the gig is up. Now they're only going to try to fuck with you, So be cautious of that. Know that they're probably going to try to come back with some kind of revenge for you having called out the truth. If you do it in a public area, be very cautious with that too, because the narcissist will try to make you look like the crazy one, or you look like the abusive one, or like it's your fault. And what if they have flying monkeys there, that sort of situation. I would be very cautious in that, because it could be suddenly like a whole bunch of people gang up against you. And the more public it is, the more of that injury, the narcissistic injury, you're going to trigger in the narcissist, because the more people who are witnessing that, remember, the only thing that's important to them is how other people see them, their public perception, the image, that mask that they wear, and that everyone believes in that mask. That's what they want more than anything. So if you remove that mask, it's like you pull down their pants in front of the public, and now they're really raged at you, and they probably won't act on that in front of everyone unless they can twist that in some way in the moment to make everyone, go against you. But rest assured, they're going to cook up something, some kind of major revenge plot against you for having exposed them in public. So I would be cautious with that. I would not stop from speaking your truth to people who want to listen, your friends, your relative, any support network that you have, your close inner circle. I would tell the truth. I would expose who he is to them, especially if they're like, oh, so-and-so is so amazing. If they're in your close inner circle and you really trust them, I would absolutely tell them. I would speak your truth loudly amongst your people, and maybe that will help with the voice too. But if you really, really feel like, this person just put you down for decades, maybe it was a parent, maybe it was a decades-long marriage, maybe it was a sibling that's always done this to you, maybe it's just a friend that you had for decades that you just let walk all over you and you didn't even realize what was going on, and you just feel like you have to speak your truth before you walk away. If you feel like you have to do it, then do it, because it could have immense repercussions for the better. Confronting my mom was probably one of the best things I ever did. It wasn't comfortable. I definitely feel like she's going to try to get back to me at some point, and I'm okay with that because I know who she is now. And in speaking my truth to her, everything changed. That was the tipping point in my recovery, and it was the tipping point in my business taking off. It was like a major changing point in my life, just simply vocalizing how I felt, which I hadn't done for 38 years. So if that's what you need to do, then do that. Just, a lot of caution in that topic, because it's going to trigger the narcissistic injury. And one more important caveat, if that person is physically abusive, if you have any reason to doubt your physical safety, I would not do it at all. Because what if the rage then triggers that person to become physically aggressive? What if they hurt you? What if they killed you? Something like that. So be very, very cautious. And if it's someone who already has a track record of physical abuse, I would just not do it. I would work that out with your friends and support network or a professional. I would do like a surrogate kind of experience where maybe you and the professional, or you and someone else, acted out, where you're calling, the narcissist out, but it's actually your therapist or someone, and they're holding a safe container for you, and they're allowing you to do that in a healthy and therapeutic way, versus having the negative feedback that you're definitely going to get from the narcissist. Sending you a big hug too. I know it's so hard to get over the injustice, it's so hard. And sometimes you just have to trust that for whatever reason, God, the universe, set it up that way. For whatever reason. And this universe, God, is infinitely more wise than we are, right? So trust in that, and trust in that there's something here to learn. And when it's really, really hard, just keep asking yourself, like, what is it that I need to learn right now? I'm having a really hard time with it. So what is it that I haven't integrated? What isn't that I haven't processed yet? What is it that I haven't allowed myself to feel or to see in this situation that could set myself free? Those are empowering questions to ask yourself. Someone says, hey Meredith, I'm just curious to understand the following. My ex diagnosed with BPD, NPD cheated and left me and married a new woman within 3 months. I have heard stories through reading that the narc always tries to keep in contact with an ex. My case, he has not made any contact. He simply cut me off like I was dead. He has tried to keep in contact with my friends and recently texted my best friend asking how she is. I find it weird that he would want to be in contact with my best friends, especially since he has moved on with the other woman. I can't imagine why the new woman would be happy knowing he is contacting my friends. Just curious to understand this. So this is probably him initiating a smear campaign or attempting to get under your skin by triangulating you with your best friend. The very first thing I would do is have a conversation with your best friend and understand that that conversation might make it really clear whether that person is actually your best friend or not. Okay, if that person is your best friend and you tell that best friend, hey best friend, my ex is contacting you, and I don't know how much of the story you've told your friend. Maybe she knows, he knows, maybe they don't know. Maybe you need to give a little background. But I would very specifically say, I don't feel safe at all if you're in contact with him or her, with him. If you hear, please block him on the phone, on social media. If you should hear from him in any other way, let me know and just block that. Please don't answer those calls or those texts or the social media. It would make it very clear. And if your friend is like, oh yeah, definitely, I can't believe he contacted me. I was just so shocked. I didn't understand at first. I thought maybe something was wrong with you, maybe they were concerned. But if your friend is like, yeah, I want nothing to do with him, I don't want him to contact me, absolutely. How do you block a person, and you show them on the phone, and then you remind them about Facebook or whatever social media, that's your best friend. That's your best friend who has your back, who is standing by you and saying, absolutely, that boundary with that toxic person, with my best friend, is my boundary too, and that person has no place in my life. Now, if you have that conversation with your best friend and you're like, hey best friend, you know how so-and-so, my ex contacted you, could you please block him and this and that? And they say, well, why? It seemed harmless to me. He was just concerned about you, and he and I, we had this connection. Whoa. Okay, now what are you gonna do? Now you need a new boundary with your best friend. Okay, that person is no longer your best friend. That's not a best friend. I hope that's really clear to you. If that person has that response, they are not a best friend. They are not someone that belongs in your inner circle, because that person does not have your back. Don't put people in this circle if they don't have your back. I heard Dr. Sean Stevenson speak last week at a seminar. He was awesome. He talks about your pit crew. So the pit crew, for those of you who don't know, when people are racing cars, they're going for a period of time. They need new tires, they need new fuel, they need things checked up, right? So they dive off the track, and their pit crew, like this group of 5 or 6 people, surround the car, and everybody has a role, and they move quick, because the quicker they move, the quicker the person in the race car gets back out into the race. And the better chance they have. This is their team, their pit crew. The person in the car is totally reliant on their pit crew to take care of them, right? Get the gas, to change the tires, to fix whatever's going on, and get them back in the game as quickly as possible. So, Dr. Stevenson said, well, what happens if you can't count on your pit crew? What happens if you pull off the racetrack and no one's there? What happens if the people who are there are like surfing their phone, smoking a cigarette, talking to other people, looking in the mirror, taking care of themselves. Like, they're not there for you. They're not looking out for you. They're not helping you succeed. That's not a pit crew. Those are not people you want on your pit crew, right? So who is in your inner circle in life? Who are the 5 or 6 people that you spend the most energy, time, and contact with? Even if it's someone on the phone, right? Maybe they're not in your immediate area, but you spend a lot of time on the phone, or you're in a lot of contact. Who are those people? Do they really have your back? Do you have theirs? Is it a mutual relationship? If it's not, that's not a person you want to have in your life. So this might be, you know, a get real conversation that you have with your friend. And maybe this is the blessing for you to realize, you know, is this truly your best friend or not? And I hope it is. I hope this person really has your back. And then, you know, you guys have like an even tighter friendship after that. And this guy just fucks off because he realizes he can't get in, you know, to your friends and to your group because they have your back. And it's important that he recognizes that your people have your back, and he's not going to get anywhere trying to do that. You know, my guess, you're saying too, you know, I can't imagine the new woman would be happy knowing he's contacting your friends. Chances are, 1, she doesn't know. Chances are, 2, if she does know, you know, she's now being played in that whole game of triangulation, you know, where she, you know how the triangulation game works, right? Because probably the same exact thing happened to you with this guy at the beginning, you know what I mean? So he's doing that now with her, and you remember how it went when the triangulation started, and when you were clueless, you were like, okay, well, I have to compete. I have to compete against the person that is being triangulated against you. Or am I better than this person? Or will he love me as much or more as that person, right? And that's probably where she's stuck right now, unfortunately. But that's her path, and that's not your path. And you don't need to waste, you know, your mental energy focusing on that and thinking about that. It might be tempting. I would encourage you to stop thinking about that. And every time you feel your mind going there, I would ask yourself, do I really want to spend my mental and energetic resources on this? And listen to the answer, you know, because maybe the answer is no. Like, there's so many other things I want to think about and focus on, and it's not that, right? So I would get real clear about that. So this for you, this sounds to me like a lesson in boundaries, you know, boundaries with your friend, and just getting really clear about, is that a friendship or not, and boundaries with yourself. You know, how much do you want to keep thinking about that or not? And yeah, it's super shitty that he found someone new in 3 months. Like, that makes no sense. The fact that he's like married this woman within 3 months, I mean, that just tells you how off his rocker he is, like totally unhinged. How dangerous is that marriage going to be, that relationship? And just be grateful you're not there. Be grateful you had the courage and the balls to get out of there and to not stay with this person who obviously doesn't know what love is. You know, if he's leaving you, cheated, leaving you, and is now married to this person within 3 months, something ain't right. And be really happy that you're not involved in that anymore. You know, that, for me, that's how I would get over that kind of heartache with, like, he moved on, you know, and so quickly, and I meant nothing. I would just find some way to find gratitude in that and be like, thank God he moved on. Thank God that's not me. Thank God I found the courage and summoned the courage from deep within myself to get up and out of there before it was too late. So good job to you. Celebrate that and get a real reality check with your friendship. Big hug to you. Okay, question says, what if the abuser is your mother and you are underage? This is what is happening to me. I really don't know what to do. My options are live with her only as a survival thing, or go on my own and not only deal with the ghost of her, but to deal with the money issues. My question, if I stay, can I stay healthy? And if so, how? I really look forward to stop playing the victim and stop caring about when she will lose control. As you say, it's like being addicted to it, and sometimes I can't leave her. Thank you for your videos. They help a lot. So I'm really sorry that you're stuck in this situation. I don't know how old you are underage. I don't know if you're like really close to 18. I don't even know what country you live in and what your rights are in that country. In the United States, there are extenuating circumstances which could allow a child underage, I think once they're 16, to become emancipated. And that means like the court, declares that you are free from your parents. You can make your own decisions, you can move out, you can do whatever you want to do, essentially. I don't know if that's an option for you. I don't know if that's an option for you, even if that's a legal option, if that's an option for you. I don't know how young you are. I don't know what your support network is like. I would not jump out of that without a support network if you are young, especially. It's extremely dangerous for you because you need to be around people who are looking out for your well-being. You need to be around other role models, particularly people who are older, maybe like almost like a surrogate kind of mother figure in your life. Do you have someone like that? And if you don't have the support network that can help you, I don't recommend jumping out of that. It might be that you need to stay in that situation for a couple more years. If you're 16, 17, I'm not sure. Here's the thing, as Dr. Gabor Mate says, we cannot separate the individual from the environment. It is all one. The environment, which is your mom and the emotional ambiance of that household, is affecting you and will always be affecting you while you're living there within that environment. And I don't believe that you will ever be able to massively move forward in your life until you get out of there. Having said that, it is possible to stay in that situation for a period of time and manage it. You could manage the boundaries, you could manage the abuse, depersonalizing it as much as possible, creating as much as possible the boundaries that you can to keep yourself safe as much as you can as an underage person whose parent is like a ruler over your life. It's a lot more complicated than the situation of a person who is over 18 and living with a narcissistic parent, or an adult who's in, an adult intimate relationship with a narcissist. It's much more complicated for you because of the underage thing. It might just be that you need to look at this period of time as your like coming of age, your being born into this higher frequency octave of who you are, you starting to discover very, very young what is your calling in life. Because if you have realized what's happening this young, like, you must be really bright, and you probably have a big calling to answer in this life. Don't give up. It's not going to be like this forever. This is not going to last forever. There is a period of time that you will get to where you will be able to get out of there. Even if it has to be for the next couple years, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and it will get better. There's support out there for you. There are awesome people out there for you who have been through something similar. And whatever purpose you're going to extract from this experience is what is going to lead you forward in life. Now, I would be quiet about all of that. One of the major boundaries that I would have with this narcissistic mother is not sharing your emotional state, not sharing your hopes and dreams for the future. Keep all of that quiet. All of that, because she will use all of that against you. She will try to interject her fears and her doubts and her you can't do it and all of that. All of her own insecurities, she will try to force on you through that enmeshment that's taken place, where she has tried to create you as an extension of her. I would look up keyword terms like emotional incest. Emotional, not sexual, not physical. Emotional incest is when a parent or grandparent or other caretaker creates this dependency on the child to fulfill the adult's emotional needs. It's absolutely wrong. Maybe the adult's partner isn't there, or the partner is an alcoholic, or the partner is a narcissist, or the partner is just checked out in some way. And so, they need to extract this love or whatever that narcissistic supply is from the child to feel good about themselves. They're using the child as a pawn to make themselves feel good. And that creates really damaging effects on the kids. That's probably what's going on in the situation. So the more you can recognize it for what it is, the more you can identify the tactics that she's using, the stronger you'll get, the more you'll be able to depersonalize that and keep that outside of yourself rather than getting triggered into it. Set as many boundaries as you can to keep yourself safe without creating like a violent backlash. I don't know how violent your mother is, how dangerous things can get. I mean, if things get to the point where it is really physically violent, I would check into local domestic violence shelters, see if there's any support, and I would do this all very quietly and carefully. Like, I don't know how savvy your mom is about the internet and the history on your computer and stuff like that, and maybe this is stuff you need to look at the library or at school, where it's not going to show up on your home computer. I would be very, very cautious about that, and everything that you plan, including your escape, everything I would keep completely secretive until the very last minute when you are on your way, because they will try anything to get in the way. The worst fear of the narcissistic parent is that you leave, because they need you there. They're completely dependent on you to control, to abuse, to extract whatever it is that they want to extract from you, whether it's love or servitude or, just bossing you around and controlling your life and enjoying the fact that you're not moving up in life, or you're not doing well in school, or you don't have a good social life, because they're just destroying everything. I would spend as much time as possible at your friends' houses, especially if you've got friends who have awesome parents. I would hang out there as much as possible. I would not create a jealousy factor with your parent. I would totally frame that in some way where it doesn't seem like your parent needs to be jealous, because then she's going to try to ruin that for you. Maybe just something boring like homework or whatever, that's your excuse. Spend some dinners maybe with your friends' parents if they'll invite you, and just really absorb what it's like to see a healthier family. Like, every family is dysfunctional to a point, but when we're talking about these abusive dynamics, we're talking about a whole other level of dysfunction. And being around a healthier family dynamic is going to be really healthy for you, because you learn some really destructive, unhealthy blueprints for love and relationships, and it's going to take you a while to overcome that, and you can overcome that. And it's awesome that at this age, I'm not sure how old you are, but I know you're underage, at this young age, you've already started to figure this out, which means you're light years ahead of the rest of us. So that is awesome. Stay tuned, keep listening to people on YouTube talking about these topics, connecting to people on the internet if you can, connecting to support groups if you can online, and knowing that you're not alone. I've also seen some kids on YouTube, like other survivors, posting videos of their narcissistic parents, or talking about the abuse that they went through with a narcissistic parent. You might really want to start creating some connections, of course quietly. You don't want your parent to figure out what's going on, but just because, so that you're not alone, and so that maybe you get some other ideas from other brilliant, bright kids like yourself, and they've come up with some other ideas that I don't know about, because I wasn't that young and figuring things out yet. And start blazing your path and making your plan, and knowing that if you can get through this, you can get through anything, and you're going to be such a strong adult having come through this, and hopefully during this period of time that's left between when you can escape and move on with your life and right now, that you use this time to learn more about yourself, to develop a greater resiliency and a greater strength, and to start creating your plan for your dream. What is it that you want to create in your life? What is the direction that you want to take in your life? How are you going to take this experience of childhood abuse and transmute that into some sense of purpose moving forward? Because the bigger that purpose is, the more it pulls you forward, up and out of the gravity of the past. The bigger that purpose is, the more everything you went through was totally worth it. The less weight all of that negative stuff from the past has, because you're creating this purpose and you're transmuting that into something amazing that you're doing with it, that you're helping other people, you're contributing in some way to other people to make their lives better because of what you learned. I'm sending you an extra big hug, and just stick around, and if anybody else is in similar situation, hopefully you'll comment below in the comments here, and you guys can connect, so that you realize you're not alone. And I'm sending you a big hug. I hope you keep me posted on your journey. Someone says, if you get a chance, question for your next Q&As. I'm no longer together with my covert narcissistic ex-husband, but we have an 8-year-old daughter. I've been having trouble sticking with gray rock, no contact. When he's not around, I listen to YouTube and read my journal about the abuse I went through, and I am disgusted with him, knowing I truly want to stick with no contact. But when he picks up our daughter from my place and starts making conversation, I fall back into missing him and wanting to hang out. Why do I do this? I can't seem to stay in that same disgust mindset of him when he's in my presence. It's like the moment I open my front door, my disgust for him disappears every time. So the first thing I would do is to start to create a subconscious symbol of him. I would go read that journal of abuse that you talked about, and I would come up with an image. Maybe the image is a viper snake. Maybe the image is like a beehive, or a hornet's nest, create something that maybe it's something that like either you're afraid of or you just want like nothing to do with, or like you see that thing and you're like, whoa, right? Create that image, okay? And make it really clear. Make sure it has an emotional connection with you, right? And then start imagining him as that image. Every time you think about him, you see the image. Every time he shows up at your door, you see the image. And it just makes you really aware of what you're really dealing with. Because maybe it looks all pretty on the outside, and maybe he says all the right words and he hooks you into that conversation, but if you are looking at him from the very get-go, you open that door and you see a viper and you're like, whoa, hey, here you go, here's the daughter. Yeah, here's our daughter, see you Sunday at 3 p.m. Close that door, and just have no more communication. Like, oh, gotta go, really busy, have an appointment. And I would make yourself very busy and having things to do every time that you're exchanging the kid or having any contact like that. Only have contact about the kid. I would have no other phone conversations about anything that doesn't have to do with your kid, and something about the arrangements of that, nothing personal. Even if he starts talking about his personal shit, I would just start tuning that out immediately and thinking about something else. And when he's done, you can say something like, that's interesting. Okay, well, have a great day, and just dismiss it. And don't feel bad about doing it, because remember, that's what he did all along. Anytime you tried to share your feelings with him, he dismissed it because your feelings weren't important to him. So that's the gray rock communication, where you're not having any emotional connection, you're not having any emotional conversation, you're simply keeping it at, here's the details about our child, and that's it. And you're not lingering in the door space where you're opening the door and sharing the child. In fact, don't let him into your house. Make sure that's all taking place outside of your door, so that you have the control of walking in and closing that door. And I would just, from now on, I would invent something. Maybe now you have a new class every, maybe you typically exchange the kid on this date and this time, then I would specifically have some new thing that you have to do immediately thereafter. And okay, gotta go in a hurry, and just move it along and just keep doing that, so you're not getting yourself hooked in that conversation, because you recognize now that's your trigger. As soon as he starts talking about stuff, you're hooked into that, and now you're loving him again and all that, right? And that's dangerous. So keeping that boundary up of making it short and quick, and then setting up that, subconscious imagery of who he really is, who he really is when you're reading the abuse journal, and start thinking of him all the time as that, because that's going to create this immediate aversion to that. You're not going to want to snuggle up to a viper. You're not going to want to listen to what the hornet's nest has to say. It's very dangerous, and it's going to remind you of the danger. It's going to remind you why you need to create that barrier, that boundary of gray rock contact, and then no other contact other than the gray rock communication you're having around your kid. Just keep it super, super short. And remember, your house is your house. You get to set all the boundaries. And if the new boundary for you is you bring her out to the car and that's it, and he doesn't even come to the porch, that's fine. It's your property. It's your house. You get to make the rules. No matter what, I would not let him inside your house. I would make it super clear. If that's at all not clear, or he tries to get in, I would just make it super clear. This is your space. He doesn't enter there at all for any reason, And don't be afraid to own that. And don't be afraid to face the immediate discomfort which will happen when you set a new boundary. Just like when you set this new boundary of, not having this conversation at the door, he's going to be upset. He's going to try to do things that are going to get under your skin. You know, maybe he'll try to say something that he knows will get under your skin so he can get a reaction from you. Don't fall for it. Maybe then if that doesn't work, he'll try to say something nice, knowing that he's probably going to get a reaction. Don't fall for that either. That way he's just not getting that hook. He can't hook anything on you if you just keep warding all that off with the gray rock contact. You're just not interested, you're busy, you've got stuff to do, everything's boring in your life, trust me, there's nothing to ask about, nothing to know about, you know, and just keep everything private in your life behind that door. Don't share any of that with him, because any and all of that can be used against you. You know, even just the simplest conversation about things could be used against you. So make it really clear who you're dealing with. That way you create that extra added reminder of you just don't want to go there. Sending you a big hug too. Okay, I think I am all caught up on the questions for today. So just want to remind you guys, I'm going to post that link below of the page on my website where I would like you to now submit your questions for the Q&A. It's through a little comment feed. You will need to be logged into my website in order to see the page. It won't appear if you're not logged into the website. And then please go ahead and write your comments in there. I will read those in the following Q&A sessions. And I am sending you all a big hug. See you soon.